The day started like any other for Daniel, a simple worker in the city. He woke early, dressed in his worn uniform, and walked the same dusty road to the factory. His life was not exciting, but it was steady. He had no family nearby, no wealth, only the small wage that kept him alive. Every morning he told himself to keep going because that was all he could do. The city streets were loud and crowded. Humans pushed past each other in a hurry. Aliens walked in silence, keeping their heads low. The aliens were treated like shadows, unwanted outsiders. Daniel often wondered why people hated them, but he never spoke about it. Speaking up could mean trouble, and trouble was something he could not afford. That morning, as he walked past the market, Daniel noticed something unusual. An old alien woman, her skin pale and cracked with age, tried to cross the street. She carried a basket that looked far too heavy for her weak arms. People brushed past without helping, some even laughed, whispering cruel things about her. Suddenly, her legs gave way, and she fell hard onto the rough stone ground. The basket rolled away, spilling dried roots and fruit into the dirt. Daniel froze for a moment. He knew if he stopped, he would be late for work. His boss was strict, cruel even, but his heart ached. At the sight of the old woman struggling, slowly, painfully, she tried to push herself up. Her thin arms trembled, her face twisted in pain. Around her, the crowd flowed like water around a stone, ignoring her. He made a choice. Daniel stepped forward and bent down. He picked up the basket first, then helped her sit up. Her breathing was heavy. Her hands shook as they clung to his arm. Her eyes, dim and old, looked at him with surprise. "Thank you," she whispered, in a voice that cracked like dry wood, but the crowd was not silent. Some humans sneered. "Look at him, wasting time on that alien," one man said. Another laughed. "He must be desperate for friends." Their words burned Daniel, but he did not let go of her. He helped her stand, brushed the dirt from her thin cloak, and placed the basket back in her arms. In that moment, he forgot about time. He forgot about his boss. He only saw a weak being in need of help. The old alien tried to step forward, but stumbled again. Daniel quickly caught her, steadying her weight against him. She leaned on him with trembling legs, and he guided her across the market street. But fate was cruel. As they reached the other side, Daniel saw his boss standing there, arms crossed, eyes like knives. The man's face was red with anger. "Daniel," he barked, "you left your station. You think this is a charity street?" Daniel opened his mouth to explain, but his boss cut him off. "You are done. You're fired. Do not come back." His words were sharp and final. He didn't care about the reason. He only saw an excuse to throw Daniel away. The old alien gasped, her hands shaking harder. "No, please, he helped me," she said softly. But her voice was too weak. The boss turned his back and stormed away. The market crowd went on as if nothing had happened, leaving Daniel standing in silence. The weight of the moment crashed down on him. His heart pounded. His chest felt heavy. He had lost the only job he had, the only source of food and shelter. He looked down at the old alien, who still held onto his arm. Her eyes filled with sadness, guilt mixing with gratitude. Daniel forced a small smile, though his throat was tight. "It's all right," he whispered, more to himself than to her. He knew his life had just changed, but he did not regret it. Something inside him told him he had done the right thing, even if it cost him everything. The alien woman's hand trembled as she reached up, touching his arm with surprising strength. "You will not be forgotten for this," she said. Her voice was still faint, but there was a strange weight in her words. Her eyes, old and tired, seemed to hold a hidden glow, a secret he could not yet understand. Daniel stood there, jobless, humiliated, and yet holding the fragile hand of an alien who should have meant nothing to him. He did not know that this single act, this moment of kindness, would open a path he never imagined, a path where destiny itself would come to meet him. Daniel walked slowly beside the old alien woman, his heart heavy after losing his job. The sound of the market still echoed behind him, laughter and voices. that seemed to mock his choice. Each step he took felt heavier, but the woman's trembling grip on his arm kept him moving forward. He had nothing left, yet she clung to him as if he was her only hope. Her shelter was far from the busy market. The road grew quieter as they turned into narrow alleys. The smell of damp stone filled the air, and the walls around them were cracked with age. Finally, they reached a small broken house tucked between taller buildings. Its door hung loosely, and its windows were covered with cloth instead of glass. Daniel looked at the place with sadness. He thought no one should live like this. Inside, the air was cold. Dust floated in the light that seeped through a torn curtain. The furniture was nothing more than a low table and a bed made of straw. On the walls, faint lines glowed. A strange pattern, symbols he did not understand, pulsed softly, like old scars of light. Daniel's eyes widened, but he said nothing. He thought maybe it was some alien tradition. The old woman lowered herself onto the straw bed with a deep sigh. Her hands shook as she placed the basket on the floor. Daniel bent down and helped her, arranged the scattered roots back inside. She smiled weakly, her lips cracked. "No one stops for us anymore," she whispered. "But you did." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. He wanted to say it was nothing, but the words felt empty. She looked at him as though she could see into his heart. "Many humans walk past us," she said, her voice thin. "They see us as dirt. But you reached down." For a moment the room was silent except for her weak breathing. Then she leaned closer. Her old eyes caught the faint glow of the symbols on the wall. "You must listen," she said. "The world has forgotten what kindness means, but the stars remember." Daniel frowned, unsure what she meant. "Stars remember?" he asked softly. She nodded slowly. "Kindness does not vanish into air. It stays. It grows. It returns to the one who gave it." Her words were strange, almost like a prophecy. Daniel tried to laugh lightly, but it came out weak. "I don't know what the stars can do for me. I just lost the only job I had." The old woman's gaze deepened. Her wrinkled hand touched his, surprisingly warm. "You will not regret this," she said firmly. Her voice, though weak, carried strength. "I have lived long, longer than you can imagine. And I know when fate moves, it has moved for you." Daniel felt uneasy. He wanted to believe her, but all he could think of was his empty pockets, his boss's angry face, and the long nights of hunger that might come. Still, he could not bring himself to walk. Away he stayed, helping her set a pot of water over a small fire. He searched her shelves for food, finding only a few dried pieces of fruit. He gave her the largest piece and kept the smallest for himself, she noticed, her eyes softening. "Even when you have nothing, you give," she whispered. "That is rare, human, very rare." As night fell, the air outside grew colder. Daniel thought of leaving, but the woman begged him to stay until she fell asleep. He sat near her, watching the soft glow of the symbols on the wall. They pulsed slowly, like a heart beating. He felt strange, as though the room itself was alive. Her breathing steadied, as sleep took her, but before her eyes closed completely, she murmured, "The stars will guide you, Daniel. Trust them, trust me." Daniel leaned back against the wall, staring at the cracked ceiling. He was tired, hungry, and uncertain of tomorrow. Yet deep inside, something stirred. The old woman's words clung to him, refusing to fade. He felt that he had stepped into something larger than himself, though he could not yet see it. The night was long, and Daniel barely slept. His thoughts twisted between fear and curiosity, between doubt and a strange sense of hope. As dawn broke, light seeped into the small house, and the glowing patterns on the wall dimmed to nothing, leaving only faint scratches. He wondered if he had imagined them. The old alien woman woke and smiled weakly at him. "Thank you," she said again. "You are different. You are not like the others." Daniel stood slowly, his legs stiff. "I don't know if I can come back," he admitted. "I don't know what I will do now." Her smile grew faint, but knowing. "You will return. You may not understand now, but you will. Destiny has touched you, human, and it will not let go." Daniel stepped out into the street, the rising sun burning orange in the sky. His stomach was empty, his future unclear. But, her words echoed in his mind, "You will not regret this." For the first time since he lost his job, Daniel felt something small but real, a seed of hope. He did not know where it would lead, but deep in his heart, he sensed that his story had only just begun. Daniel returned to the old alien woman's shelter the next day. He told himself he would not go, that he had no reason, but his feet carried him there anyway. His mind was still heavy with worry about food, about rent, about how he would survive without work. Yet when he thought of her weak smile, of her trembling voice promising he would not regret his choice, something pulled him back. The streets were quieter that morning. The market noise stayed behind as he walked deeper into the narrow alleys. When he reached the crooked little house, the door was already open. Inside, the old alien woman sat near her small fire, her hands folded on her lap. She looked up as he entered, her eyes brighter than before. "I knew you would come," she whispered. Daniel gave a small laugh, though it sounded unsure. "I don't even know why I'm here," he admitted. She tilted her head and said, "Because your heart leads you, not your fear." He sat down across from her, staring again at the faint glowing marks on the walls. In daylight they looked less like scratches and more like words written in some forgotten language. He wanted to ask, but he stayed quiet. The woman noticed his eyes and gave a tired smile. "They are memories," she said softly. "Stories carved by those who came before me." Daniel frowned. "Stories?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, stories of my people. Once we were not hidden in shadows. Once we walked among stars." Her voice grew softer, as if she spoke to the past itself. "We had cities that floated in the sky, towers taller than mountains, ships that carried us between suns." Her words painted pictures in Daniel's mind. He could almost see them. Bright alien worlds, glowing towers, a people filled with life and pride. Yet her voice cracked, and the picture in his mind darkened. "But we were betrayed," she whispered. Her hands trembled as if the memory still hurt. "Our allies turned on us. Our enemies hunted us, one by one. Our cities fell, our ships burned, until only whispers remained." Daniel leaned forward, his heart pulling at her sorrow. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. She closed her eyes. "I survived because I was chosen to carry the stories, the songs, the memories of my people. I was a seer, a keeper of light. But what good is a keeper when there is no one left to give the light to?" Her words struck him. He saw the sadness in her tired face, the pain of carrying a burden too heavy for one soul. "You're not alone anymore," Daniel said without thinking. His voice was firm, though his life was falling apart. She opened her eyes and looked at him, a strange glimmer in her gaze. "You say that now," she whispered. "But will you still say it when the weight becomes too heavy, when the shadows come looking for me?" Her question sent a chill down Daniel's spine. "Shadows?" he asked. She lowered her voice, her eyes shifting to the door, as if afraid someone might hear. "They are not human, not like you, but hunters. They follow the last of my kind, searching, always searching. They want what I carry, the last truth of my people." She placed a hand over her chest. "If they find me, they will destroy me. And they will destroy you for standing near me." Daniel sat back, unease crawling through him. He had only wanted to help an old woman, not step into danger. Yet as she spoke, he felt the weight of her story pressing into him, like chains that were slowly binding him to her fate. The fire crackled between them, lighting the faint symbols. On the walls they glowed brighter now, as if the words themselves reacted to her story. Daniel stared at them, feeling something stir inside him, something he could not name. The old alien woman leaned closer, her voice no more than a breath. "But you, Daniel, you are different. I see it. The stars see it. You are not like the others who walk past. You gave when you had nothing. That is why fate has chosen you." Daniel shook his head. "Chosen for what?" I have nothing. I lost my job. I barely have food. I can't even help myself. Her lips curved into a faint smile. That is why you were chosen. The stars do not seek the strong. They seek the kind. For kindness is stronger than steel, and it lasts longer than empires. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it, but he could not. Her words filled the room like a secret song. He felt both fear and hope tangled together in his chest. As he left her shelter that night, the wind cold against his face, he carried more than worry about his empty stomach. He carried her whispers, her past, and the strange idea that destiny had noticed him. He looked up at the night sky, stars blinking through the dark clouds. For the first time, he wondered if they truly were watching. The days that followed were not easy for Daniel. Without work, his coins quickly vanished. His landlord knocked on his door more than once, reminding him that rent would not wait for kindness. Hunger became a steady ache in his stomach, and at night he lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling of his tiny room, wondering if he had ruined his life by helping the old alien woman. But every morning something inside him pushed him back to her shelter. It was not duty, not even hope, but a quiet pull he could not explain. Each time he arrived, she welcomed him with the same faint smile. Her voice was weak, yet her eyes carried a strange fire. She told him stories of her people, their rise and fall, and every word wrapped around him like threads, pulling him deeper into her world. Still, doubt gnawed at him. His neighbors whispered that he had lost his mind. He gave up his job for trash, one said. Soon he'll be begging in the streets. Another laughed. Daniel heard them, their cruel voices scratching at his pride. He told himself he should stop visiting her, that he should think only of himself. But when he tried, he found his feet walking the same path, leading him back to her broken house. One night, the test came. The air was colder than usual, and the streets seemed too quiet. Daniel reached her shelter and felt a weight in the air, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Inside, the fire burned low. The old alien woman sat hunched forward, her body trembling. Her eyes flicked to the door before he even entered. They are coming, she whispered. Her voice shook like the flames. Daniel frowned. Who? She looked at him, fear shining in her tired gaze. The shadows, she said. The hunters. Her frail hands clutched his sleeve. You must go. If they find you here, you will die with me. Daniel's chest tightened. Every part of him wanted to run, to escape the danger, to save what little he had left. But when he looked at her thin frame and weak body, he knew she could not even stand, let alone run. Before he could answer, the door shuddered. A heavy thud shook the wooden frame, then another. The fire flickered wildly as if it too was afraid. Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Sweat formed on his forehead. He had no weapon, no strength, only his two hands and a courage he did not know he had. The door burst open and shadows spilled into the room. They were tall, cloaked figures with glowing eyes. Their voices hissed, in a language Daniel did not understand. The old woman cried out, clutching her chest. Daniel stepped in front of her without thinking. His arms spread wide as if his thin body could be a shield. Leave her, he shouted, his voice cracked, but it carried through the small room. The shadows hissed louder. One stepped forward, a long blade gleaming in its hand. Daniel's breath caught. He wanted to run, but his feet stayed firm, his hands clenched, into fists. The first strike came fast. Daniel barely dodged, the blade slicing the air near his shoulder. He grabbed a broken chair and swung it with all his strength. The wood cracked against the shadow's arm, making it stumble back. Another hissed and lunged. Daniel pushed it away, his body screaming with fear and effort. The fight was uneven. He was a man with nothing but scraps. They were hunters bred for this. Yet every time he thought of stepping aside, of letting them take her, he saw her old eyes, the sorrow, the weight of her past, and his body refused to move away. Minutes felt like hours. His arms grew weak, his chest burned, and still he stood, bruised and bleeding. At last, the shadows drew back, their glowing eyes fixed on him. One spoke in a rough, broken word of human tongue. Protector, it hissed. Then, Like mist, they slipped back into the night, leaving the door swinging open behind them. Silence returned. Daniel dropped the broken chair and fell to his knees. His body shook. He could hardly breathe. The old alien woman crawled toward him, her hands trembling as they touched his arm. "You stayed," she whispered. Tears welled in her eyes. "You chose to fight even when you had nothing to gain." Daniel forced a weak smile, though his face was pale. "I couldn't let them take you," he said. She looked at him with awe, her voice low but steady. "You have passed," she whispered. Her words carried more weight than he could understand. In that moment, Daniel realized this was no simple old woman, and he was no longer just a man without a job. Something greater had begun, something that would not let him go. The night after the attack was long. Daniel could not sleep. His body ached from the fight, his arms covered in bruises, his knuckles raw and bleeding. The memory of glowing eyes and hissing voices replayed again and again in his head. He had stood against them somehow, but he knew they would return. The old alien woman sat near the dying fire, her hands folded on her lap. She watched him with eyes that seemed calmer now, almost too calm. "You have done what many would never dare," she said softly. Her voice carried a strength he had not heard before. "And for that you deserve the truth." Daniel frowned. "The truth?" She nodded, then slowly rose to her feet. Her frail body straightened, her back no longer bent. For the first time, Daniel noticed that the trembling in her hands had stopped. She stepped toward the wall, where the strange glowing symbols had been faint for days. With a single touch of her palm, they flared with light. Filling the small shelter with a soft golden glow, Daniel gasped. The walls themselves shifted as though they were alive. Patterns spread like flowing rivers of fire, glowing brighter and brighter until they formed shapes, stars, and galaxies. Dancing across the stone, the woman stood in the center, her figure bathed in the light. "I am not only a weak old alien," she said, her voice echoing in the glowing room. "I am Solara, last priestess of the Lethari." Daniel blinked. "The name unfamiliar, Lethari?" Her eyes glimmered. "Once we ruled the skies. Our ships moved between suns. Our temples touched the edge of the stars. We were not warriors. We were guides, seers, keepers of light and wisdom. But when betrayal came, when the hunters rose, we fell. I alone was chosen to carry the last truth of my people." Daniel stared in shock. The woman before him no longer looked weak or broken. The glow of the symbols reflected in her eyes, making them burn like twin suns. Her skin, pale and cracked, seemed to shimmer with faint lines of silver, as though a hidden power lived beneath it. "But why me?" Daniel asked, his voice unsteady. "Why show me this? I'm nobody. I lost my job. I have nothing." Solara stepped closer, her gaze piercing. "Because the stars do not measure worth in coins or titles. They see the heart. You gave when you had nothing. You stood when you should have fled. That is the strength my people believed in. That is the strength the hunters fear." Daniel shook his head, his mind spinning. "I don't understand any of this." "You will," she whispered. She turned back to the wall and pressed her hand against a circle of light. The stone cracked open with a low hum, dust fell, and a hidden chamber revealed itself. Inside, the air shimmered. A small pedestal stood at the center, holding an object wrapped in silver cloth. Solara walked forward and carefully lifted it. Her hands trembled, not from weakness, but from reverence. She carried it toward Daniel and slowly unwrapped it. Inside was a device unlike anything he had ever seen. A sphere of crystal, glowing with shifting colors. It pulsed like a living heart. "This," she said, her voice low and filled with awe, "is the core of memory. It holds the knowledge of my people, their history, their wisdom, their power. I have kept it hidden for years, waiting for the one who would protect it. And now, it belongs to you." Daniel stepped back, shaking his head. "Me? No, I can't. I wouldn't even know what to do with it." Solara's lips curved into a faint smile. "You do not need to know now. The core will teach you. It will show you what must be done. The sphere pulsed brighter as she placed it. Into his hands, Daniel felt warmth spread through his arms, then through his chest. His breath caught as images flashed before his eyes. Towers of light, ships sailing between stars, voices singing in a language he did not understand. It was overwhelming, yet beautiful. His knees weakened, but he held on. He looked at Solara, who now seemed younger, stronger, as though giving him the core had restored some of her spirit. She nodded, her eyes shining. You are no longer a man with nothing, Daniel. You are now a guardian of a legacy older than this world. Daniel clutched the sphere, its glow steady in his hands. His heart pounded, fear and wonder battling inside him. He had lost his job, lost his place in the world, but now he held something far greater, something that could change everything. And deep inside, though he still doubted, a small voice whispered that maybe the old woman was right. Maybe he had been chosen, not for what he was, but for what he could become. The core of memory pulsed softly in Daniel's hands, its glow casting light across the broken shelter. He had never seen anything like it. The warmth that flowed through his skin was not just heat. It was something alive, something that reached into his thoughts and pulled out pieces of his heart. At first, Daniel was afraid. He wanted to drop it, to run from the strange visions that flickered in his mind. But the old alien woman, Solara, told him to breathe. Do not fight it, she whispered. The core does not harm, it teaches. So, Daniel closed his eyes and the images returned. He saw towers of crystal, their tops glowing like fire. He saw vast ships with wings of silver drifting across endless stars. He heard voices singing words he did not understand, but somehow he felt their meaning: hope, unity, strength. The core was not just a memory, it was knowledge itself. When he opened his eyes, the world seemed sharper, clearer. Even the air felt different. Solara was watching him, her tired face glowing in the light. You see now, she said. This is your reward. You gave me kindness. When you had nothing, so now you hold everything I have kept for centuries. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked at the core, still unsure. But why me? There must be someone stronger, someone smarter. She shook her head. Strength without kindness becomes cruelty. Wisdom without kindness becomes pride. You are different. That is why the core chose you. In the days that followed, Daniel returned again and again. Each time he held the core, it showed him more, not all at once, but slowly, carefully. It taught him to read the symbols on the walls. Soon, he could understand words that had once looked like glowing scratches. They told stories of creation, of energy hidden in the stars, of machines that could heal or destroy. At night, Daniel lay awake, the core's glow still in his mind. He began to dream not of hunger or failure, but of towers of light rising again, of humans and aliens walking together. His chest ached with something he had not felt in years. Purpose, but the core did not only show him beauty, it also showed him danger. He saw the hunters, shadows moving across ruined cities, tearing down what remained of the Lithari. Their eyes burned like fire, their hands dripping with stolen light. And in every vision, Daniel stood in their way, protecting the core, protecting Solara. The knowledge he gained was not only of the stars, it was practical too. He learned how to mend broken things with strange tools Solara gave him. He learned how to shape energy, how to use it like fire and light. One evening, when he placed his hand over a broken lamp, the core pulsed, and the lamp flickered back to life. Daniel stared in disbelief. He had no training, no machines, just the core's teaching. Word began to spread. Neighbors who had mocked him now whispered differently. They saw him fixing things no one else could repair. They saw light in his small room where none had shone before. Some were afraid, others curious. Children followed him in the street, asking if he was a magician. Daniel said nothing, but inside he knew it was not magic. It was the gift of the Lithari. Solara watched all this with quiet pride, though her body grew weaker. The core accepts you, she said one evening as she lay wrapped in a thin blanket. It does not open for just anyone. It listens only to those the stars trust. Daniel looked at her, worry clouding his face. And when it has taught me everything, what then? Her lips curved into a faint smile. Then you will not only carry the past, you will shape the future. Daniel sat in silence, the core glowing beside him. He felt the weight of her words. A man who had once feared the loss of his job now carried secrets that could change worlds. Yet he did not feel proud. He felt humbled. He remembered the old woman's fall in the market, the laughter of the crowd, the cruel voice of his boss, and he realized how easily he could have walked away. The reward was not wealth or comfort. It was something greater. It was purpose. It was the chance to stand for something bigger than himself. That night, as he walked home with the core in his satchel, Daniel looked up at the stars. For the first time, he did not see them as distant lights. He saw them as doors, waiting to be opened. And deep inside, he knew his life would never again be ordinary. The days turned into weeks, and Daniel's life changed in ways he could never have dreamed. He was no longer the man who feared losing his rent, no longer the worker ignored by the crowd. The core of memory had filled him with knowledge, with visions, with a strength that went beyond his body. It had given him purpose, and that purpose burned inside him like fire. But with every gift came a shadow. The hunters had not vanished. Their whispers crept through the alleys, their glowing eyes sometimes seen at night on the rooftops, watching, waiting. Solara grew weaker with each passing day, her body fading. Even as her spirit glowed brighter, Daniel stayed close to her, guarding the shelter as though it were the last fortress in the world. One evening, as the sun sank behind the city walls, Solara called him to her side. Her breath was shallow, but her eyes were clear. "Daniel," she whispered, "the time has come." He shook his head, panic tightening his chest. "No, you can't leave me now. I don't understand enough. I can't do this alone." Her thin hand touched his cheek, warm despite her fading strength. "You are not alone," she said. "The core walks with you, the stars watch over you, and your heart will guide you. That is more than enough." Daniel felt tears burn his eyes. He had never cried like this, not even when he lost his job. But the thought of losing her was heavier than anything he had carried before. Solara smiled faintly. "When I first saw you in the market, I knew. The stars whispered your name to me. They said a human with nothing would give everything, and that gift would echo across worlds." Her words wrapped around him like a final blessing. Daniel gripped her hand, his voice shaking. "What do I do now?" "You live," she whispered. "You lead. You protect the weak. You remind humanity what kindness means. And when the hunters return, you will not stand as a worker with empty hands. You will stand as a guardian of the light." Her body trembled, and then with a deep breath she straightened. For a moment she did not look frail at all. The glow of the core filled the room, wrapping her in streams of golden light. Daniel watched in awe as her form shimmered, her old skin peeling away, like dust in the wind. Beneath it was pure light, radiant and beautiful. "You gave when you had nothing," she said, her voice no longer weak but echoing, powerful. "So now I give you everything I am." The light poured from her into the core, and then into Daniel. His body shook as warmth, energy, and visions flooded through him. He saw stars exploding into life, galaxies spinning like rivers, voices of the Lithari singing in harmony. And above all, he felt her presence settle into his heart, not gone, but living within him. When the glow faded, Solara's body was no longer there. Only her cloak remained, resting softly on the ground. The shelter was silent, but the core glowed brighter than ever in his hands. Daniel knelt, pressing the cloak to his chest. His tears fell, but with them came strength. He stepped outside, the night sky vast above him. The hunters were there, watching from the shadows. Their eyes burned red. But when Daniel looked back at them, the core pulsed and the hunters froze. For the first time, fear flickered in their gaze. They hissed and melted into the darkness, leaving him standing tall beneath the stars. The people of the city soon noticed the change. They saw the once broken man walking with a glow in his eyes. They saw him fix machines no one could repair, heal wounds with light no doctor could understand. They whispered his name not with laughter but with respect. Even those who had mocked him now bowed their heads as he passed. Daniel never claimed power for himself. He never demanded riches or revenge. Instead, he opened his doors to the poor, the hungry, the alien children no one cared for. He lit their homes, healed their sick, and gave them hope. Slowly, humanity began to see the truth. That kindness was not weakness, it was the greatest strength. And one night, as he stood on the edge of the city, staring at the endless sky, he whispered, "I am ready." For in his heart he knew the day would come when the hunters would rise again, stronger than before. But when that day came, he would not face them as a man who had lost his job. He would face them as a guardian chosen by the stars. Solara's words echoed in his mind, a promise that would never fade. You gave when you had nothing, so now you hold everything. Daniel lifted the core toward the heavens, its light shining, like a star of its own. And for the first time in his life, he felt the universe itself look back at him, not with silence, but with recognition.